Welcome back to One on One with Mr. U. Of course, I'm your host, Mr. U. Before we get into our show for today, if you're watching for the very, very first time, first off, thanks for joining us and making us part of your week. We're live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, and of course, up on listening platforms throughout the week. But thanks again for making us part of your day and your week. We got an awesome show today. If you guys are not aware of this, advancement is our goal. So we talk about on the show. Every guest that comes through has actionable tips and strategies to help us be better people in this world and also accomplish the goals that we have in this world. So thanks again for checking in. If you got a question for myself or my guests, drop it in the comments section or the chat, wherever you're watching the show. We'll answer those live on the air as best as we can. But for today, awesome guest coming in, former collegiate athlete, author, speaker, Hakeem Bourne McFarlane's in the house. Hakeem, good to have you, brother. Good to have you, man.
Appreciate you, Mr. U. Thanks for having me, man. Just growing and glowing.
Same here, brothers. I love it. I love that growing and glowing. I love that. All right. So before we get into what you're doing right now, currently, let's kind of go back a little bit into the childhood. Talk to me about Bloomington, man. Where you're from? How'd you get from where you were, to where you are right now?
Yeah, man. You know, it's just God's mission. But we don't realize that until we embrace acceptance and accountability in the systems that allow us to embrace who we're supposed to be before society try to make us someone we're not. So I was an athlete my whole life, had a white mom, Jamaican dad. Pops was out there, sex, drugs, and reggae. So who knows what he was. We got a good relationship now. So I say, fellas, you better forgive your dad or you're going to be missing part of your manhood. All right, forgive your fathers. Mm-hmm. Now I grew up, went D1 full ride. Then I dropped out, went D2. Had 5 knee surgeries, dropped out for a whole year. And I went D3, got my degree, got my bachelor's, tried to go to the league, broke my ankle. Then I lost my identity because my identity was wrapped up in sports. So a lot of people have their identity wrapped up in a business or what their mom said or what the degree said or what society said or what pop culture says, what religion says, and what the politics say. But that's all man-made. What did your creator tell you to be? That's what it is to choose yourself. So it went through an 18-month process where I had to figure out who I am behind the jersey, behind the numbers and the touchdowns and the women and the money. And through that process came the choose yourself framework that we now implement into the community workshops and retreats to help people embrace their story, build their brand, but also integrate action, tangible, measurable systems around your sleep to see if you're really about that life that you say you are.
Love that, man. I love that. I definitely want to get into a little bit about that identity piece because it's something that we run into. Matter of fact, we kind of run into it on all 4 of our podcasts, as well as our men's roundtable series every Thursday night at 7. Shameless plug, but had to put it out there because we talk to people who are former athletes, people who have been in that game, and the stories are. It never ceases to amaze me how big that identity becomes. And then, matter of fact, you use another correlation to the military. Once you leave the military, you take off their uniform. It's like, okay, who am I as a civilian? Mm-hmm. Who am I as a former athlete or former collegian or former Olympian? I got a chance to interview people who had that same mindset. I'd love to hear from you, if you can put it kind of into a capsule for us. How do you believe you got to the place where you found out who you were outside of the uniform? Because all the voices, people who will say, you know what, go into broadcasting, or you can be a coach, go to the UFL. So many options you probably could have had, you probably heard about, going to college and on the sidelines to help. I got a good friend that's an assistant coach for the Bulldogs in college. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of ways where your career on the field stops. Another door opens up on the other side. What made you decide to not take those routes and be able to find your identity and who you really were outside of the uniform? If that makes sense.
Yep. No, so sports was my passion to get my family out of poverty. That was the purpose of it first. Okay. My brother was born, and also the team commitment, the camaraderie, the brotherhood. That's the relatability between military and Olympians and sports is the brotherhood. It's not so much the game or the war or the guns or the touchdowns. It's the brotherhood. That's what a lot of us are missing nowadays, especially men. We also are missing real men. So there ain't a lot of brothers out here. Everybody trying to be something else. So when I was 10, my little brother was born with short gut syndrome and cancer. When I was 16, he died. So this was the summer between sophomore year and junior year. And when that happened, I pulled the plug and I went and played a basketball game. Sports became my mask and went from my passion and freedom to a mask to mask the grief and the pain. So now the ego took over. The ego was, if I'm scoring touchdowns and dunking the ball and running the 100-meter dash and hitting home runs, nobody's going to know I'm grieving. Nobody's going to know I'm mad at the doctors, at God, at my dad, at my mom. No one's going to know I'm mad. So sports become a mask. The whole thing about what we do in our adversity and what we do when we grieve is whatever's happening on the inside is going to be reflected on the outside. Life is just a reflection of our projections. Our self-belief becomes the filter of which we interpret life through. So when I went D1, I thought everybody was trying to turn me into something I wasn't, as far as how they wanted me to be as a player. But that was simply a reflection of me not being able to understand who I was. I'm sure they probably had a better understanding of how I could fit into the team than I could. But because I didn't sit with the grief and process and accept it, I had resentment and anger. Then I became resentful and angry towards everybody in my life. That's how I left D1. D2, got into a fight, punched a dude, first-degree assault, 20 years probation, 86 months over my head. I was on crutches. Now I'm a felon at 19 on my birthday. Got kicked out of that school. Sat out for a year. So the mask was still there, though. I still had the dream when I got kicked out for a year and I had 5 more knee surgeries when I was a dropout. I still had the mask. I still was going to the NFL. I never gave up. I was just out for a little bit. But then I started dabbling in the streets, in the black market, doing security, getting in fights, whooping people and blacking out in the black market. Eventually, that came to a turning point to where I had to go back to school. So I was like, okay, I'm not made for this. Why am I in the hood doing security? I'm from the suburbs. Why am I out here? Went back to school, but because I had a felony, I had to go to a private school. So I went D3, played 4 years, found my brotherhood, found my purpose. But then now I done perfected the balance of sports as a mask and numbing with the partying. So every year I lock in during the season and numb in the off season. But because it was D3 and I'm a D1 athlete, it was easy. I could do that. I didn't have to try that hard. I was still All-American. Didn't offense, defense, special teams, everything. So that was still stroking my ego and allowing the mask to stay alive. When I got injured, that is when I lost the mask. And now the only thing left was the numbing. And that was a 2-year dark place of constantly under the influence of something. And in that dark place, I lost my identity. I lost my faith. I lost relationships, time, health, money. I was in and out of jail, probation violation. Eventually, I got to a point where I was in the wrong group and I got locked up for 8 months, but that wasn't enough. I got out for 30 days. I got locked back up for 8 months. So this 2 years was a huge turning point for me, experiencing a large spectrum of life. Now, on the 4th day of my second 8-month stint, I had to do, it was 8 days of solitude. On the 4th day was my 4th day of straight withdrawals. And on this 4th day, I had to figure out, my dad called my uncle and my mom and my girl and said, leave him in there. Y'all need to stop bailing him out. That was the best thing he could have ever done. Because I was in and out of jail, they kept bailing me out. So now I'm in there by myself. I did 25 push-ups, 25 sit-ups every 15 minutes between the first meal and the third meal for 4 days straight. And that was my new dedication to fitness, to control the mind. Because when you expand your comfort zone, you have to be present to focus on your fatigue. So then I just forced myself to be tired. That can also be unhealthy. We can get into that. You can also distract yourself and not heal. In that transformation, I switched my dedication from people-pleasing, partying, women, and this dream to play in the NFL to personal development, podcast, sleep, exercise, learning about anatomy. Now, I have been speaking my whole life. I got my communications degree. I was the lead motivator on every team since 5th grade, halftime guy. I led all the chants. I did all the speeches for all the group projects. I had a bunch of speeches in my degree. So I didn't know I was going to be a speaker. I love speaking, but I didn't have the credentials or confidence to be able to speak. As in this 18 months, I had been bartending since I was 19. So my personal development overflowed into my business, into my productivity and work. So I became a better bartender. I became a better employee. I became a better teammate in the service industry. And my uncle owned a liquor company. So then I became a salesman for his company. Now I took the systems, the choose yourself process that pulled me out of the dark place, the 5 pillars. I applied it to business. So instead of personal development, I started researching psychology, sales, the liquor industry, and business. I started researching communication, and how to CRMs and all the tools and tactics. And then I became top in sales, boosted the company up to 1,000% sales. Then I was able to move to New York, but my PO said, "You can't move. You stuck here for 9 more years." I said, "Damn." Wrote a letter to the judge. She dropped everything. Dropped the felony, dropped the probation. I moved to New York. Now in New York, my identity was developed. That's where it was developed. Now, what I mean by this is you're not going to know what your identity is until you do the work. You can't just find it. You have to start doing the small work and the systems. Mine came in a 3-4 year span before I was like, dang, I want to do this online thing and create experiences and workshops and create retreats and speak to kids and create foundation systems and frameworks to help people really embrace who they are. But I had to do it first. And so upon reflection, everything I did in my story now became my confidence and credibility to where I speak from. And I don't speak on things that I haven't been through. So as far as the identity from sports, it came through a 3-4 year transformation and not knowing what I was doing, but I had to do something for myself and my creator.
Love it. There's a few things that I got to touch on.
Yep.
There was a lot that happened in that minute, so I want to try to grab a few things. I love what you're talking about with a private school. That's so funny to me, man, because some of those worst kids that I knew were in private school. And my mom didn't let me go to public school. She put me in private school. I'm like, bad kid. I'm like, I don't recall tearing anything up. Why you got me in private school? So I think it was more like protection, but that's just funny to me, my own little personal observation. But you mentioned something about, well, several things I want to get into really quickly. You mentioned something about the black market. Help me out with understanding what that means, because I think that might have went over all of our heads. We said black market. What are you talking about exactly?
You out there in a market of illegal sales and consumption.
Okay, all right, okay. So black market, as we already know, whatever. Okay.
Yeah,
I thought something different that we're talking about. And you also talked about how you working in a liquor company. I got to ask you about that because, and if you're free to share it, by all means, a lot of what I learned about you was talking about recovery and sobriety. So I didn't really see where you had a specific issue with that, but it sounds like that could be an interesting challenge to deal with staying sober and working at a liquor company. Tell me why that was a challenge for you that you felt like you had to undertake. I know that there were some things on the back end that kind of helped your development as a person in sales, talking to people and maneuvering systems, but why did you feel like you needed to make that kind of decision? That sounds kind of rough. If you're trying to stay sober, but you're working for a liquor company, is there a challenge there that you thought you had to take, or why did you do that?
Well, I bartended for 18 months during this whole process. I was back there. All my coworkers was drinking. I'm like, I'm just not doing it right now. So before I went out and was driving around with liquor, I was pouring liquor around people who was drinking liquor anyways. And I just decided that there was not the time for me to do any of that. I had to lock in. And as it overflowed, eventually now it's about the balance. And I talk about this, whether you're addicted to screens, sugar, liquor, nicotine, porn, weed, pills, gambling, you're addicted to gluten, dairy, sweets, snacks, whatever it is, whatever your 20% fun is, you can dabble, don't depend. You shouldn't be having caffeine every day. You shouldn't be having nicotine every day. You shouldn't be relying on freaking a vice to go to sleep. You shouldn't be relying on weed so you can eat. There's a lot of things that we're addicted to and in life, and it's the instant dopamine. But the opportunity to work for my uncle, who was there for me when my dad wasn't, was an opportunity to pay him back. That was my godfather. He gave me all kind of support and guidance from afar and allowed me the space and time to heal. But once he saw the personal development of me, he opened an opportunity for me. And I think that had it not been him, I might have tricked off that job too. But because it was him and I wanted to stand on our name and represent our family, I was able to really lock into the sales component. I ain't never done sales before. I was driving around in a hoopty with 3 cases of liquor, pulling up to bars and liquor stores, just starting from scratch. Hey, how you doing? Didn't know how to introduce, didn't know hot, cold, didn't know the hook, didn't know the call to action, didn't know how to close, nothing. Just kept going, went to 30, 50 accounts a day and got really good at it. And so that opportunity allowed me to understand business, sales, conversation, communication, because I got to just do reps. I would go to events and have thousands of people come up and I'd be pouring them up, not drinking. And it wasn't a choice, but it was my expertise. I was already 11 years in the game. I was 28. I'd been bartending since I was 18. So I was 10 years in the liquor industry. I knew the industry. I knew about the spirits. I knew about the manufacturing, the process, the farming. So I didn't have to learn something new to go try something else. I just had to change my relationship with alcohol.
Makes sense. And you talked about New York. That's my hometown. So I know that's a place that it can forge identities.
Yeah, no, I did.
It did. It can go a couple of different ways, but I love that you kind of found yourself in that space. I want to get into the aspect of your story about how you rebuilt your life, because this is one of the reasons why we do, matter of fact, why we do all 4 of the shows. It's kind of a common thread through all 4 of them. I know a lot of people, especially on our men's roundtable series, people who talk to that have stories similar to yours, but some people, they live in that. And they continue to drag all the baggage from that to wherever they're talking about going to. That's a heavy load, theoretically and figuratively, to carry around all your old stuff everywhere you go. But you decided to rebuild your life and kind of make a shift and drop a lot of things that were associated with you that weren't good for you anymore. Can you kind of break down for our listeners and viewers specifically what you did that you believe made that move successful to rebuild your life? Can you get into that a little bit?
Yeah, moving from my hometown was a huge catalyst from that. I mean, I think everybody should move from your hometown.
I did.
I think you should, at least for a year. And I ain't talking about college. I'm talking about go after college and go live on your own, try to make friends, get a job, get a new routine. It does a lot of things for the mind. But what I first started doing, it's called the foundation. It's a 3rd pillar of the choose yourself process. The process is recognize your triggers, evaluate your environment, set the foundation, invest in yourself intentionally, and then create and contribute. Those are the 5 pillars that we integrate into the Choose Yourself community, the workshops, and the retreat. But I started with the middle. The middle allowed me the space and grace to identify triggers and environment. Now, the foundation is broken down into 7 cornerstones. It starts with your digital sunset, and it goes to your first obligation. In the middle is your sleep. It's your nighttime routine, plus your sleep, plus your morning routine, without people, screens, or toxins. Now, understand, I was going times where I would work 3 shifts and not sleep. Be up, partying, then go back to work. Everybody at work was partying, go to the hotel, call some shorties, go shower, go back to brunch, go back to work, party. I was up. So sleep was non-essential for me. When I started focusing on my sleep, that was the first thing that started to change, because then when I said, okay, sleep is now, I need to sleep. My face was inflamed. My joints was in pain. My 6-pack was faded. I said, oh, I'm getting fat. This sucks. Hold up. What we doing? So sleep, I would work out still, but I wasn't working out like that. I was just going hooping, messing around. I wasn't working out for longevity. The first thing I changed was my curfew and kick-out time, where if I had somebody over, you have to leave by a certain time. Shorty, you got to go. It's 8 o'clock. Bedtime is 9. You can come over, but you got to leave at 8. And if you're not cool with that, and if you ask to stay, I ain't calling you back ever again, because you're not respecting my purpose. If I'm out with the homies or I'm out on a date, I got to be home by 8. Fine. I'm out. Cool. Yeah. Woo. Turn up. Yeah. Up 7:30 or 9 or 10, whatever you choose for yourself. Get that first commitment down. Can you kick that person out? Can you get home on time? You a grown-ass adult. Can you get home on time? Can you kick that person out? The second pillar is the digital sunset. But I went to morning routine. So I went to curfew, kick-out time. Then I started locking in my morning routine, where I would stretch, meditate, research, reflect, and do all that before I left to go to the gym. Now, I used to wake up in the afternoon and go to the gym, but I started attaching my morning routine to my sleep. So from the digital sunset, nighttime routine, sleep, morning routine, first obligation, that became the foundation. Now, sometimes I would have to work late and I'd have to shrink it. Flexible foundation. Sometimes I wouldn't work late. I go to sleep earlier and sleep longer. So now I have, right now, this day, I have a 12-hour foundation from 8 to 8, or I can even do it from 12 to 8, 8-hour foundation, and anywhere in between, because I've been doing this repetition, but I will not skip my morning routine and start doing things for other people. And I will not allow somebody to force me to sacrifice my sleep. That's the first thing I started changing, was the time around my sleep. Then my house got clean. Then my gut got clean. Then my fridge got clean. Then my screens got clean. My feed got clean. Everything started changing because I prioritized myself. And the only way to increase your confidence is to do what you say when no one's watching. When you do what you say to other people, what you trying to do? Get validation? You trying to get your cup full? Oh, you went and picked your friend up from the airport. Oh, I took my kids to work. You spoke, cool, fine. But are you going to wake up on time like you said? You're going to do them push-ups when it's painful? Are you going to put that dang bacon, egg, and cheese down and get you some hard-boiled eggs? What you going to do?
Hold on one second. Let me jump in here real quick. I'm from New York, man. That's the breakfast of champions, man. I ain't gonna lie to you.
All right.
Still love it. It's moderated for sure. It's moderated. But that big egg and cheese on the croissant, brother.
It's busting for real.
I can't let you talk it down too much now. I get it, but
no, I love it, bro. It's fire for sure.
You going, brother? I'm kidding.
No, it's fire. And now we talk about the balance. Okay, this is the thing that people, I think, get misconstrued about choosing yourself.
Yeah.
80% healthy, 20% fun, 100% happy. Life can't be redone, but you got to have the systems in place to replenish and recover, and you got to bracket your celebration with your foundation. Now, the thing about that is, if you can't break free of your vice, it's not dabbling, it's dependency. And the more you consume, the less you create. So if you can't do nothing before you hit the vape or the vice or the caffeine or get on your screens or beat your meat or freaking get some processed food, what are you doing?
You trying to get me canceled, man.
What? That's a real problem. I'm talking about people 17, 18 got ED because of them dang screens. It's a real problem. This is something that people need to hear about. So
hold up. I want to come back to that screen part because I got a question about that maybe you can help me out with. But I want to say, firstly, thank you for sharing this process of choosing yourself. I hear people talk about that or they say things like that. I'm not saying that you use the exact words, choose yourself. I hear that so often. And you know what? It goes from being about self-care, which is what it should be, to just being people who are just selfish, narcissistic, egotistical. And they get it all twisted up because of their motivation. I love what your choose yourself process is all about. It says foundation before motivation, structure before freedom, integrity before identity. I love that. Are you able to speak to those three right quick? I mean, because that right there, that alone is good enough. Foundation before motivation, structure before freedom, integrity before identity. That's kind of what you're building through this process, right?
Yeah, I mean, you don't get motivation until you believe you can do it. We were just talking about this today in the CYC Zoom. Your motivation comes from dopamine. You don't get dopamine until you take action. Dopamine is literally the neurotransmitter that provides us with motivation and energy. So our mind is going to pick the path of least resistance, and it's always going to fear the worst case scenario. So you combine those two with having to change your routines and habits, there becomes some restriction and some dissonance between where we want to be and where we're used to being. Our habituality is the easy way. What we did yesterday, same thing, same results, no uncertainty. The foundation is the small systems I said: digital sunset, nighttime routine, reading bedtime, wake up, skip the snooze, morning routine, mind, body, spirit, first obligation. These are things that you said you would do, and only you are watching. Your subconscious, your creator, your 80-year-old self, and your 8-year-old self. Whole team is watching. This is where our self-belief comes from. When you can tap into your self-commitments and make changes in your routine, simple changes at first, and then eventually you want to create a controlled struggle like ice bath, heavy weights, sprinting, cardio eventually. But first, just change your habits. That's enough pressure for most people to quit. Just wake up on time, go to sleep on time. So in the foundation, you see the impact that the foundation has on the rest of your day. Those results then activate and release dopamine and activate the reward system. The reward system then becomes what we choose in the morning when the alarm goes off. We want the reward that we had yesterday, but we have to get up right now. But if you never got up, you don't see any reward. You ain't never been there before. Yeah. So the foundation comes before motivation. It's literally faith, willpower, and gratitude is supposed to get you up first.
Yeah. I got a few more questions. I'm going to try to get them in with the time that we got left. I don't want to leave them on the table. You mentioned screens. Tell me how you made that shift for yourself. You had your phone up a little bit ago for those that are listening but not watching us. You had your phone up on the screen. Tell me how you made a shift and what kind of shift did you make to kind of minimize that screen time, what you're seeing, maybe cleaning your timeline. Is there any practical shifts you have for that? Because I hear that a lot when people, they want to kind of scrap the whole platform. As a matter of fact, that was me yesterday, ready to just scrap all the platform. Like, yeah, that might not be the answer. I got 4 podcasts and a coaching practice and some up. So tell me what you did practically to kind of clean up things regarding your screen time and your timeline. Okay.
Yeah, we'll figure out what's in alignment with you. For me, education, nutrition, that's about it. If it don't align with those things, I'm gonna block, unfollow, delete if it pops on my screen. Any type of violence, any type of explicit content, any pop culture, politics, religion, anything that try to persuade me or sell me is gone. I need education, nutrition. That's I filter my feed. You're gonna put a filter on your face, you put a filter on your coffee, you put a filter on your joint, but you won't filter your feed. You got to filter all 5 senses. What you're watching, what you're listening to, what you're saying to others, what you're saying to yourself, what your body smell like, what your house smell like. Take the trash out. Why your seasoning cupboard smell like garlic? Because you ain't got the discipline to put the top on. You got to filter everything. And it would be senseless to leave them defenseless because the overall consensus is to convince us that there's consequences to being authentic. Also,
you out here rhyming like Don King. I'm starting to hear a pattern of some rhyming going on.
Oh, you don't want me to get started, my brother. Well, growing and flowing. And another thing.
How long did it take you to get there, though? How long?
What? Flowing?
No, not the flowing part, the screen part. How long did it take you to get to the place where it was where you wanted it to be? How long did it take?
It was probably from that first initial point up until I moved to New York and I put down the dating apps and the porn and any following any girls I didn't know, supermodels. I just put it all down and I focused on purpose. That was the huge shift. I put all them down, huge shift. That was
years
in New York.
This is years though, right? This is years we talking, right?
This was 2021 when I moved to New York, yeah. Yeah, so really, my thing was mostly.
I would get all day in one day, but that's not.
Yeah, that's but you know, now it's I'm more about creating instead of consuming.
I love that. You talked about the CYC community, man. I want to hear about that really quickly while we got time left. I think we understand from what you already said what the community is all about. What's the evolution that you've noticed since you started to right now within the community?
Well, we got people launching brands. We got people putting down Percocets. We got people launching food trucks. We got people getting their kids back. We got people meeting in Costa Rica. We got people getting their degrees and teaching classes. We got people doing all kinds of stuff by simply setting the foundation and tapping in with a community who cares about themselves so they have the care to overflow onto you. That's what it is. That's all it is. And the whole thing about the CYC, it's a public integrity loop. You say something to someone else, you use the ego to your advantage because a lot of times we care more about what other people think of us than what we think of ourselves. And so you could tell yourself all day you about to do something, but if you don't care about you, you ain't going to do it. But if you care about how other people view you, you tell them, guess what? I bet you follow through. And that's what I did when I first started doing content. I would speak to the screen. I put the screen down. I get DMs and comments, and they say, thank you so much for your content. I can't put the screen down and then go party now. I got to do what I said. So the screen, the public integrity loop, I talk about it in my book, from a screen is now the community for anybody else who doesn't want to use the screen. You can use us, CYC.
One more question to my last question, because I gotta ask that real quick. So, who's your ideal community member in the CYC? For those that are watching and listening who may want to join you, who's your ideal community member?
Typically people like 30 to 50 who are just done with either the repetition of day-to-day societal norm and the programming, or who are coming out of some type of transition, whether it be relationship, whether it be financial, whether it be any type of grieving or new city or new environment. It's the people who have done enough to have the experience to be like, all right, I'm at my last wit. It's time. What am I capable of? What do I have before I give up or keep selling my soul? You choose yourself, or you're gonna lose yourself if you keep snoozing yourself. Don't confuse yourself and abuse yourself. What you doing?
You over here rapping again. I love it. I love it. Reminds me of home. I love it. All right. So, firstly, before I ask you this last question, I want to say thank you for being here. You're here because you know how to move people forward. And the conversation's about giving our audience practical pathways to advancement, man. So that's what this is all about. So thanks for being a part of the discussion and for helping our folks out, man. Really appreciate it, brother.
Hey, I appreciate you having me. Thank you for what you do.
Same here, sir. So last question, well, two-part. Okay, answer this question for us, and then at the end of that, let folks know where they can find you, your work, and what have you, and then we'll close out. So my last question for you, Hakeem, what's one decision or action that somebody can take away that immediately moves their life forward? I know we talk about a lot of things that take time, it takes a consistent progress. What's one thing or decision that they can make right now that will move their life forward today? What would you say to that? And then after that, let folks know where they can find you and your work. Go ahead.
Morning routine.
Break it down real quick.
Between your alarm and your screens, do something for the mind, meditate, read. Do something for the body, stretch, exercise, breath work. Do something for the spirit, gratitude journal, prayer, religious text. Tap into each one of those, even if it's 2 minutes. Here, I'll give you this right here. Here's something you can do right now. Wake up, brush your teeth, scrape your tongue, wash your hands, wash your face. First of all, hygiene. The mouth is the first part of the gut, okay? And the gut and the mind were combined. We developed in the womb till it was separated by your spine. Now, then you do something for the mind. You can meditate for 2 minutes. Just sit there. Just sit there. Sit down. Stretch for 2 minutes. Pray for 2 minutes. Can you do that? Can you do that?
I'm sure that they can do that.
Okay, and then you add on to that. Now you got a little routine that you can keep growing and glowing and eventually evolve into a system that will create a character that can be resilient, emotionally intelligent, and authentic in the world. And now you move with alignment and find your God-given assignment.
Where can they find you and your work, brother?
Tap in Big Dream Hakeem on socials. You can tap in with the CYC on the school app, or you can go to chooseyourself.info, submit your info, and I hit you back.
I love it. I believe if you haven't already, you'll be following me on all the socials. Hopefully you have done that already. If not, please do that. So that way, when the questions come in, you can answer those questions yourself. And I ain't got to try to be Hakeem because I can't be Hakeem. So thank you for doing that and for being a part of this conversation, man. Collegiate athlete, author, speaker, Hakeem Bourne McFarlane. Thank you, brother, for being part of the conversation, man.
Thank you, man. Choose yourself.
Same here, sir. Choose yourself. God bless you guys for watching One-on-One Mr. U. That's Hakeem. I'm Mr. U. We're out of here. Have a good